Sage Wonder coming at you from my van down by the river. All right, Sweden. The biggest story you really haven't heard much about. So, you may not be aware of what's going on in Sweden. Now, many of you may be aware that Donald Trump talked about what was going on in Sweden in a speech. And of course, the fake news came out and said, oh, he's making it up. There's nothing going on in Sweden. There's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. Oh boy, there is a huge story going on right now out of Sweden. And I'm privileged to bring it to you because I think many of my viewers may be hearing about this for the very first time, to the extent that I'm about to deliver this to you. Because I believe personally that this is the biggest story in modern history that's about to erupt. It's probably been 20 years since we've had anything even close to this, especially from such a civilized country like Sweden. So I want you to know that I have to be careful in sharing this with you because we are under some serious internet censorship right now. That free speech is under attack, and you can get in trouble for even speaking the truth in a non-hateful way, just by talking about topics that you're not allowed apparently to talk about on some of these platforms. So you're going to have to read between the lines with me. We're all intelligent people, and so I think I can express this to you without using some of the catchphrases that might trigger artificial intelligence to come have a closer look. So try to bear with me and follow along. I may be using imagery and abbreviations and things like that, and not using certain words, because I want to tell this story, but I want to keep my channel alive too. And if you haven't been paying attention to what's going on or you're unaware of it, YouTubers like me are getting knocked off of YouTube left and right. Right now, I've got a clean record. I'd like to keep it like that. And I'm doing my best to steer clear of this massive purge on YouTube. So, Sweden. Now, what's happened in Sweden is that they have had an influx of ethnic communities spring up in their country. And that these ethnic communities, for whatever reason, are giving birth to some criminal gangs that are committing some crimes in Sweden. Now, Sweden has anti-hate speech legislation. So, in Sweden, you can't even talk about what I'm saying right now. That even as vague as I'm being right now, if you did this in Sweden, there would probably be a knock on your door and the police would come to you and at least give you a warning, if not, in fact, arrest you for hate speech. That this kind of discussion can't even be had in Sweden right now. And so these criminal gangs, apparently, now I'm going to tell you right now from here on out where my information is coming from, that even though there are these hate speech legislation and laws, there are some people that are trying to do what I'm doing now and be kind of vague, but you read between the lines, kind of almost like somebody that's been kidnapped and they're trying to give you, trying to give you some sign in their kidnap video that they're, where their location is, or that they don't really mean what they're saying, and so there's a lot. You got the language barrier to deal with, because some of these videos that I'm referencing here are YouTubers in Sweden who are speaking broken English, and they're trying to be vague like I am now and beat around the bush without exactly saying the thing that needs to be said for fear of prosecution for hate speech. So also some of a more clearer picture, because there's a mass exodus right now out of Sweden. Like, people are leaving Sweden like crazy. And these expatriates are also now broadcasting from safer locations and telling the truth about what is actually going on in Sweden. So these criminal gangs now have taken over whole sections of Sweden, towns, areas, regions, parts of big cities, and they do whatever they want. And anyone that comes in there is in danger. You don't have to look far to see images of these young people in these criminal gangs, these ethnic criminal gangs. that are attacking journalists who just come down there to try to, talk to them and see what's going on. There's whole areas where the police won't go in, and now these areas are producing bands or gangs of groups of young men who are going into other neighborhoods where the Swedes live, the traditional Swedish people, and they're raping and killing and doing grenade attacks. They've got their hands on heavy weapons, so they're doing grenade attacks, they're doing firearm killings and attacks, and all of this is being covered up by the media. That our mainstream media isn't even talking about this, and I think it's probably the biggest global international story in the world right now. Nothing is more I think urgent than this story. That this is getting so bad and people are leaving Sweden. And it's being propped up and propagated by the globalists who are in control of the Swedish government. So the people that run the Swedish civilian government are globalists. And they're protecting these people. They're making excuses for them that sound ludicrous. Let me tell you, some of these excuses sound ludicrous. And you won't have to look too far if you dig into this story on YouTube to find copies of the charges and the excuses that the government makes for not pressing charges against people like rapists. And they say things like, well, these people aren't used to our culture. They're not used to the free access to alcohol. When they get drunk, they get horny, so they rape some girls. So what? They'll learn. They'll learn to hold their liquor. They'll learn to be Swedes. They'll stop after eventually. Well, just give them some time. Insanity. So the law is not being enforced at all against these criminal gangs in Sweden. The police are just not doing anything about it. Furthermore, if you talk about it, the police will come for you. So a police state around this social communism, not socialism, social communism, societal communism. We're not talking about politics or anything. We're talking about this. It's the political correct concept on steroids. And it's where this country, the United States, is headed. And Sweden is the canary in the coal mine. So what's going on now is you've got this criminal globalist government making excuses for these criminal gangs that are roaming the streets with heavy weapons in Sweden. And you have another element here. One YouTuber from Sweden described it like this. In this hand, you have the civilian police force in Sweden. On this hand, you have the military in Sweden. So the military in Sweden is not going to put up with this. They are not in tune with the civilian government. They are not going to sit by and watch their country fall into anarchy any further than it already is. And now both sides are sharpening their knives, and civil war is about to break out in Sweden. There. That's the hook. Civil war is coming to Sweden. And our news isn't even talking about this. Really, Alex Jones, why aren't you talking about this? These YouTubers are telling you, by being very careful so they're not being arrested, because so many people are being arrested for what they're saying. These YouTubers are trying to tell us all, civil war is about to break out between the military and the police in Sweden. Does that sound familiar? That we also have a conflict in this country between the military and the police in the form of the FBI and potentially the military that's backed by Trump? Is civil war in Sweden almost a type and shadow of the civil war that's coming to the United States? Are we about to see finally civil war break out in Sweden and be broadcast, or is it going to be suppressed? Is this going to be a secret civil war that everyone goes around and going, no, nothing's happening here. There's nothing here to be seen. They've been doing this for more than a year. They've been saying, nothing's going on in Sweden. Nothing's going on in Sweden. Yeah, well, dig around a little bit. Something ugly is going on in Sweden, and it's just going to get worse. Civil war, it's breaking out. It's like a virus coming to a country near you. God save our republic.